Everyone is welcome here, it's time to make new friends. Aquavide Uskava, fill your Glencairn. Share a dram with the spirit of Edmonton. Slancha!
Good evening, Whiskey Brothers, Whiskey Sisters, Whiskey Friends, and welcome to episode 55 of the Canadian Whisky Journey's Whiskey Review. I'm Dolph, I'm President Alberta Scott Society, creator of the Whiskey Book Club, and your host tonight. And we are continuing our Canadian Whisky Journey with episode 4 of the Sons of Vancouver's Whiskey Advent Calendar Review of Just Whiskeys for Me. And when I say we, I mean it. We got a lot of people tonight. So we've got James right here. So we got James, owner, and I'll call him head distiller, but Jenna might tell me I'm wrong. We've got Jenna in charge of the whiskey program. We've got James, John, James was down there. John, the whiskey neighbor on this side, and I've got everybody. Welcome to all three of you. How you doing?
Oh, really well.
So good.
Excellent.
Yeah, great. I can't believe that we're getting to the end of this amazing calendar. It's been a wonderful walkthrough, and there's only 2 days left for me. Amazing.
It's very light now.
We've been watching. I think like you guys, and then we have a couple other people who've been posting daily videos too. The Tabasco barrel was particularly fun to watch.
Some people adapted well to it. Some people not so much. It's okay. It's all about the palate, and you guys like to have fun, and I think that's fantastic.
It's no different than our chili vodka. It's very divisive. People either love it or they hate it.
Well, and, it's interesting you say that because I wouldn't say I love it or hate it, but it knocked my palate around. Like I think I did a whiskey after I did that. I'm like, why am I even bothering? I've got nothing left in it.
Yeah, that one is even divisive in the distillery itself. But yeah, I think James is the true fan of the Tabasco whiskey too.
I champion it. I every year I'm like, guys, we got to do it again. One person told me they loved it.
One person, and I like that person a lot. That's okay.
It was me.
Oh. Yeah, I've seen a few people post about it this year that like they really enjoyed it, and I'm like,
oh yeah, I get emails every year when people are like, please release that one as like a single bottle, and I'm like, this guy's crazy. Like, it's so
no,
spicy.
They have to buy the whole Advent calendar. I'm sorry, buddy. That's it. I'm pouring two. John, you've got that first one. I know you have it up. The Rum Barrel Single Malt Whiskey. You've got that. You're not going ahead, so you don't have the Single Malt Whiskey, which I have. There's my second one. And those of you out there know I like to double fist my whiskeys because it's the perfect way to compare one whiskey and the other. It's the way I like it. And I'm pouring a little itty bitty dram for my wife, where it makes me look like Hulk. It's very small.
No, if I would say that though too, I came into that probably in year 2 of having a channel that I really appreciate having another whiskey to bounce some thoughts off of because of course we go through, we water down, we get our tasting notes, we got a pretty good sense of what we're doing. But then when I put it in contrast to something, to me it highlights, oh right, coming back to it, I'm really getting this note or another thing. So I agree with that. I like it.
Yeah, that was something that I learned from Gavin de
Kergamo.
Yeah, he pointed that out in a whiskey tasting that he did this year of, nosing back and forth between something and how it brings out notes that you didn't smell the first time or tasted the first time. And yeah, it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I drank whiskey for many years with just a glass of water, and I drink the water to cleanse my palate and go back to the whiskey. And I think maybe it was a whiskey tasting probably 10 years ago where they had coffee beans on the table. And just to go between the coffee beans and the whiskey, it was just something that took you away to another experience, and then you'd go back to the whiskey to bring you back. I don't necessarily go between two whiskeys, but I always try and have something else that isn't sweet, maybe like a black coffee or something on the side.
The coffee's perfect, and I use the little pods. If I'm going to a whiskey tasting and I know I'm going to have several, several, I have the little pod and you bring it out. But I might claim credit for Davin saying that to you because when I did this with Davin, 2.5 years ago, he thought I was crazy for going with peat and sweet types of whiskey side by side. He thought I was a little bit crazy, and I told him that's just how I go. And the more divergent they are, or if they're like these two are going to be really close, which is good too, because the minutia, that small difference. But when it's vastly different, it just brings it up. It's good.
Yeah. So these are both from the same batch. So we did a single malt run in. I'm just looking at the barrel here. Yeah, it would have been 2019. Is that right? 2019?
Yeah, it was like September 2019.
Yeah. So we did that run in 2019, and then I think we ended up with 2 barrels, and then those got split into a few different things. So we have a barrel here that's sitting right beside me. That'll probably be like a future release at some point. But then the other barrel got put into a few different projects, and we've been using it bit by bit in the advent calendar. So these two were treated differently in the barrels that they then ended up in, but they were distilled off in the same batch. So you'll see a lot of really similar flavors, and then you'll see the differences in the casks that they ended up in, basically.
You know what would make this better? And the only thing is if I had the new make right beside it. So go to new make to this.
This
I triple fist. I do it
this
for
has
you.
been a point of contention in our distillery because Max and I both want to include new make in our advent calendar. Our whiskey is quite neutral. We don't run a pot still, and so it comes off of a column. It's quite pleasant as new make spirit. James is very anti new make, and so we fought a little bit about whether it was going to go in this advent calendar. Maybe I really wanted to do one day that was new make, and then the next day is the aged version of it. Maybe it'll end up in the advent calendar.
Great idea. Fantastic idea. And James thought it was a little bit crazy. At the distillery, I was trying the new make in the barrel, and he was looking at me a little bit sideways. It's like, you like that?
No, I think it's a great way to get an idea of how people are making their spirits and how is it coming off the still? How's it tasting right when it came off the still? It's a really interesting comparison to make. And sometimes it tastes completely different. Sometimes you can really see where it came from. Yeah.
John, what do you sit on new make? You like having the unaged spirit right beside it?
I would say I wouldn't go back to the experience as often as in a calendar having it every other one or every other, that would be more than I would want it to experience. But whenever I manage to get to a distillery, I do ask if it's possible to taste a bit of what's coming out of their stills, because there is a character. I know you mentioned yours is fairly neutral. You're not running pot still, but there is still a character that you pick up a bit, and I kind of like to think, oh, okay. Can I find some of that character through the casking? And usually I can't, but I imagine I can. So I wouldn't mind trying it once. It'd be good.
So I agree with all these points. I think that trying
especially
a new make,
when it's a little bit warm,
is very interesting. But does it belong in an advent calendar? Is the question. And
2 people here are telling you.
Well, they haven't answered yet. I don't know how you're reading this, Jeff. It's just not something that we might enjoy it, but I don't know if it has a place in an advent calendar.
It's a good point. You guys, I think, are a good representation of the whiskey nerds who are going to go through it, and they're going to be there for they really want to see the true whiskey expressions, and so you'd love to see new make to be able to compare. How does the 100% rye new make compare to the 100% rye aged? But yeah, there are consumers who are there for the liqueurs. We had a lot of people that love the pumpkin spice and stuff, and so
I got a compliment today on the upside down pineapple cake.
That one has been a crowd favorite for sure. I've got a lot of remarks about the upside down pineapple cake.
So I hear what you're saying, especially these are gifts and at a celebration.
And my wife loves all the liqueurs. She loves them. It's just on the whiskey, guys. So it works really well. It just does for my wife and I. She gets the little one, and then the other one she pours one, and I get a little one. So
we poured this though, Dolph, and I'm curious if further insight could come from the makers that are with us here in terms of where do you source your rum from? Can you share that or not? And is there an experience around that? Like just a little insight into how we got to this.
Yeah, so this one we wanted to throw a single malt into a rum barrel because you get the rye rum barrel finished through the palm trees, and so we wanted to do a different expression with the rum barrel. We got 2 rum barrels this year. They came from the Virgin Islands, I believe. Cruzan, if you're familiar with that rum brand. You don't often get the distillery origin for like X barrels or like finishing barrels. You'll get like a sherry barrel and they won't tell you where it's from, or you'll get a peated barrel and they won't tell you where it's from. But these ones, they had written it on the barrel with like permanent marker, and so we knew where they were from. These were they were prepared as like bourbon barrels, but not ever used. So rum went into these barrels. So it was already aged rum that went into new oak.
Yeah.
I think it was a number 3 or a number 4 char barrel. And so it only spent about 6 months to a year in there. And so we got these barrels and we found that they imparted a lot of rum flavor, but they also imparted a lot of new oak flavor because like they had a lot of life in them still. And so we did struggle a little bit with like keeping the wood back and trying to like emphasize the rum a little bit. And what we found was the best way to do that was to bring the percentage down. So you'll notice that both palm trees and this one are at, I think this one's 54.5 and palm trees is 53.5. And they came out of the barrel at about 58 or 59. And then we brought the proof down on these ones. We're big proponents of like the cask strength booze. Most of our whiskey's cask strength. This one, we found that it really benefited from some water to bring some oxygen and to like really open it up. And all those tropical notes came out when we actually brought the proof down a little bit. So so that's how we ended up here. They spent about like 6 months in the barrel, I believe. Might have been closer to like 4. We basically like whenever we end up with a finishing barrel, we put it in there and then we just taste it. And some take a long time, some take like a few weeks, and then we have to pull it out because it's going too far already. This one spent quite a bit of time in there. And I think we only put like exactly how much we needed for the advent calendar. So it tends to like get a lot more flavor a lot quicker when you only put like a smaller volume in there too.
With the, I can speak a little bit to the earlier whiskey because that was before Jenna was with us. When we distilled this, we do a lot of our, we don't do a ton of single malt, but when we do, we always use a French Saison yeast, and the 2-row malt and the French Saison, when it ferments out to essentially a beer, it's wildly like fruity and tropical and like, think like pineapple and mango. If there weren't grain in it, it would be awfully delicious to drink. And when we distilled it, a lot of those like tropical flavors came through in the new make. So, to your point, it would be really interesting to taste the new make.
It's not too unlike if you had the 100% rye in your calendar. You get a lot of those like banana clove, like along with the peppery spice of the rye. Rye can really go in that sort of banana clovey, like almost like a wit beer direction. And that's really what we aim for. There's like, most of our barrels are ex-bourbon barrels, and so it just lends really well with those flavors. So yeah, the single malt is quite similar in the expression. But yeah, this is a really nice dram.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of like that rye original note that Canadian ryes have a lot, but I actually think a bit of that is coming from the rum as well. where you with these with Virgin Island rums, you get a little bit of like something like agricole, and that lends itself to the greenness of well, I said rye earlier, but I meant of malt.
Yeah, I would say, like, truthfully, we were hoping for.
How
like,
wet was your barrel when you got it?
It was very wet, actually. We were really happy with how wet the barrels were. We were hoping for a little bit more rum punchiness out of it. I think the fact that they were new barrels and that they had only, the rum had only been in there for like a year. We were hoping for like a barrel that had rum in it for 20 years, but they're hard to get your hands on, and especially like during COVID, it really messed up the barrel supply, and so you have to fight for barrels a little bit now. And so we were just happy to get the barrels that we needed and have what we needed for Advent. But I think in the future we'll probably do it again and probably look for like some more specific rum barrels where we like know exactly the origin and where they're coming from and what was in them.
We'd seen some Appleton barrels around, but couldn't get them.
Didn't work out. Yeah, we had like 2 Appleton barrels that were on the line, and we were very disappointed to lose them. So these were sort of the consolation prize, but overall we were really happy with how it turned out. I think the tasting the rye versus the single malt, like if you taste palm trees and then you taste this expression, it's really interesting to see the different grain character and how it goes with the tropical flavors differently. Like malt is so clearly pairs well with those sweet notes just because of the sweetness of the malt, but the rye with those like big green, like grassy notes also we found really married well with the rum cask.
I find that
So John just accepted your challenge. He's got both of them in his glass right now. So John, you can tell us if what you think with both of them side by side. I'm going to stick with the 2 malt side by side.
And like, I'd be interested to know which one you like better too.
Between the single malt or the rye?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm nosing them. I'm loving them both, just on the nose. But how long are we nosing for? Because it's like we're 20 minutes in, and at some point I wouldn't mind saying cheers. I'd like to taste a little bit of your whiskey.
Let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers.
And I'll just make my first comment. Yeah. My comment's going to be on the single malt, though, starting, because when I'm going back and forth, the one flavor or one element coming out on the single malt is dried apricots. That's what's coming to mind with me when I'm doing it. So, and it hit me, and it took me about 5 minutes, John, as we're doing this and listening to the conversation. It took me about 5 minutes to get to the dried apricots with the single malt, not with the rum barrel. So this is a little bit different, and it sounds odd, but it seems sweeter, the single malt, as opposed to the rum barrel single malt. So I think the rum barrel, the agricole rum, might have tempered the sweetness a little bit.
You can see I've got my Alberta Scotch Society here.
Beautiful. Excellent. Good job, man. Cheers. Good selfless promotion of the club. It's nice.
I've only tried a sip now of the rum barrel, and I'm hunting now for apricot, but I don't know if I'm there. And the sweetness of rum that
on the single malt.
What's that?
Single malt, not the rum, but the single malt, the one you're going to probably have on the 24th.
Oh,
so
sorry.
I
thought we were talking about the single malt that was finished in the rum barrel. I thought that's where we were.
No, I'm doing both. I'm doing both. But I said that's the one distinguishing feature that I had between my single malt and the rum barrel single malt. You're doing the rum barrel single malt and the rye rum barrel.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from with that. The dried fruit aspect, for sure.
Yep. John, we're going to have your distinguishing comments between those two, if you can. Did you get anything really different on the nose? Because on Tuesday I did the breeze.
Sorry, you caught me right when I'm sipping.
Yeah,
we got to time ourselves better. That you talk while I'm drinking, and I'll talk while you're drinking.
Or we just all drink at the same time, and people can watch us say nothing but drink. That's good. I'll be happy.
There's definitely like there's a for the rum barrel single malt versus the single malt. When I go to the regular single malt and then back to the rum, I can smell that new oak smell. It's a little bit like
Nice.
I associate it with like a almost a dilly smell. It's like
I get like balsa wood.
yeah, like it's like a fresh cut pine flavor that that comes through, and I get that on the nose. And to me, that's like the difference between I know this one, the single malt has not spent time in new oak, and so like the rum barrel aged single malt would have spent time in that like very new rum cask, which I think is creating that flavor there on the, or the scent on the nose.
So for me, it's a sharpness right at the front of the nose is what's going for the wood that you're talking about. That's and the pininess, we could call it that. Why not? But it's like right front of the nose, right away, first sniff.
And then I don't know if you guys have been following it all on social media, but like on our social media is where we post all the tasting notes for all of these.
Yep.
We're looking into in the future how to like incorporate it better into the box because we recognize not everyone is active on social media all the time and like looking at it every day. But so the single malt expression spent time in a slightly smoked cask. So it wasn't the grain that was smoky; it was the cask itself. We received these casks from one of the distilleries in the States. So it was like an ex-bourbon cask that they had smoked. And I do find that it comes out just like the tiniest hint in the single malt. Like once someone tells you it's there, you pick it out. But if you didn't know, you might not notice it. But it's like a really light, almost like mesquite or like hickory or something.
Yeah, I'm kind of grappling with a flavor that's like it's not cola and it's not like root beer, but there's a little bit of like a spice note in there as well.
It might be from that.
I can see that. But it's not like something we ever get in our whiskeys.
Yeah, it was one of the things that I really liked about it when we tried it for the first time.
Well, I don't want
Sorry,
to
we're
confuse
gonna
people who are
focus on
tuning
you
in
a
if I
little bit,
start
Jim.
talking about- Sorry, Dolph, go ahead.
No, that was me. I'm just cutting out a little bit, so I'm just playing with the picture a little bit, trying to get you a little bit clearer so that I can hear your comments. So I missed the whole thing. Sorry.
Oh, I apologize. I was just jumping in because, you know, but I don't want to confuse the people who are tuning in and you're talking rum barrel finished single malt versus the single malt, which we heard, you know, the cask maybe had, the cask was slightly smoked or something was in it that was slightly smoked. I didn't quite catch that. But, and then I'm going to talk about the rye. So I don't want to get people confused about what whiskey we're talking about.
Our internet connection is famously bad over here, so if we cut out at any point, just let us know. But I was just saying that the single malt expression, the one that you'll try on the 24th, spent a little bit of time in a lightly smoked cask, and so we got it from a distillery in the States. They had bourbon in it, and they had smoked the cask, and so we put the single malt into like an ex-bourbon smoked cask. And so you get a tiny bit of smoke there. You might not pick it out unless someone pointed it out to you.
Right.
But yeah, it adds sort of I always find that like smoke adds somewhat of a savory note or like a hickory mesquite type thing.
Yeah, no, I totally would agree. It's interesting to describe a cask as smoked because, you know, like, is it scraped and recharred? I mean, obviously, all the casking process, lots of times the cask is burnt and smoked or toasted or whatever. So it's interesting that the cask was described as smoked. Like, I imagine it being over a smoky, like, not a lot of heat or fire, but somehow, yeah.
It's what, like, I find that people do it when they don't have access to peat or, like, peated, or they can't use peated grain for some reason. You'll see people like smoking the barrel instead. And my guess is like similar to when you smoke like a rocks glass when you're making an old fashioned. Probably like one of those guns that spews out the smoke. That's my guess.
Yeah, you see a lot of like cherry wood and stuff like that. I don't know for sure. We don't do any of it here, but Adolph's got it.
Yeah, totally. It was for sure not from the cooperage. It was them doing it themselves after the fact. But yeah,
I've always kind of assumed it was like the smoker chips or something.
Yeah.
I don't know the process, but I kind of imagine heating them up and just putting them in an empty barrel and sort of rolling it around, and then letting the barrel absorb some of that. If you can put something hot inside a barrel and you can hammer the bung closed, when it cools down, it'll pull a vacuum, and then when you open it up again, it'll kind of give you a pop, and then you probably rinse those chips out or something like that.
Okay. Well, I'm enjoying it, and John on the 24th. Remember this: a little bit of smoke, and I still think the dried apricots. And you can call me full of crap all you want at one point in time, and refer back to it and say I still can't taste it. But that's me. That's so the single malt. But now I'm focusing on the rum barrel, and I swear it's less sweet. It just seems less sweet. Do you two have them, Jenna and James? Do you have them side by side, or do you remember them side by side?
Yeah.
Yeah, the rum just seems less sweet, and I always expect the opposite.
Interesting that I find the rum to be sweeter, but I also find it to be much woodier.
Maybe that's it.
But yeah, the single malt is coming off as like.
I'm because I don't have the single malt, but I have the rum barrel finish. I'm connecting far more right now with the wood notes that you're talking about, like almost a little bit of that pine and I mean, there is for me. There's some fruit. Like I wanted to lean into like, oh, it's like a rum raisin, but it's just not that sweet for me. It doesn't have the brown sugar, that kind of stuff. It took till like, what are we at? 20? I don't know how long we've been nosing this thing. 20 minutes at least. And now I'm getting more of what I associate with rum, but it took a while for me to get it. Now I can get some of that. It's definitely there, but it took me a little work.
Yeah, when we did, I don't know if you got a bottle of Palm Trees when we did the release. We did the dried pineapple bag with it, and
package.
Yeah, and like the purpose behind everything that we send out, we always send out little treats with every bottle, but like the purpose is always to evoke the tasting notes that we feel are there, and like the rum, because we struggled a little bit with getting those like fruit notes out of the rum cask. We found that the pineapple really made your brain bring out those flavors, because we knew they were there. And like the story behind Palm Trees was that we ended up with this I think we had 2 barrels of like super banana-y rum, super banana-y rye, and we were blending it, and we were like, man, this just smells like, it smelled like banana runts. Like it was just like the banana hit you in the face. And we were like, this would be great to put in a rum cask. And so like, that's how we ended up doing it.
But we lost all the banana.
Yeah. The banana actually like sort of went away from the rum cask, but
I think it was the effect of like that relatively new oak.
Yeah.
Just took the banana and kind of ran in like this like pineapple coconut direction for the rye anyway.
I got cake. It was so bready. It felt like a Christmas, I don't want to say this, kind of a heavy loaf with the pineapple on it. That's how it was. It was really bready for me, and the pineapple all together.
James so happy.
John, do you get that? Can you think bready on that and think kind of a Christmas heavy loaf with pineapple? That's why I was going with the rye that you have.
Yeah,
on that one.
Yep, I can totally get there. But for me, just going back and forth, right between the two, that they're both ended up the pineapple or expressive fruit for me, almost not quite floral, but yeah, maybe bready, but something sweet vanilla in there too is really coming off the rye on the nose for me. It's a pop more for the fruit notes than it is on the single malt. Just going, this kind of thing,
Yeah.
and I would say, yeah.
It's funny that you say the cake. Like I think another one of the names we were kicking around for it was like rum cake or something like that. Which, yeah,
Perfect. Good. And it would have worked really well.
Palm trees in a tropical breeze was a little bit snappier, but rum cake was like, yeah. We might have put that in the tasting notes somewhere, but yeah, that was one that we picked out. It's like that.
The names are creative and they're fantastic. So keep up the creative names. And it reminds me of SMWS. You guys have seen them too, right? It's just you put some thought into it. I love it. It's fun. It's playful, which is what you guys are. But this can lead me to a question though. With so this is the second time you've done the Advent calendar, and was it easier this time than last time? I'm just wondering.
In many ways it was, and in many ways it
Is it
wasn't.
because you had more alcohol prepared?
Every year,
Because you prepared more for it, like you knew you were going to do it, so you prepared earlier, type thing, or what?
That was part of it. When you're starting from zero, it's like you don't know what it's going to look like. You don't know where to get the box. Like we had no idea how to do it, and so this year we had our vendors. We knew who we were getting the box from. We knew how to do it. We knew about how much time it would take us. So the process and logistics is a lot easier this year. I would say what was more difficult is that we doubled the number that we made this year. So last year we made 200. This year we made 415 or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a little more stressful in that we were like, are we going to sell all of these? And we did. We ended up selling out like the day before December 1st. So we were very happy about that.
Was it half online, half from the distillery, or which one kind of, where did you sell more?
We gave them to like liquor stores this year, which was exciting.
Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
So
All in North Vancouver?
All in British Columbia.
Okay. All the way through.
Yeah, last year also, like it was one of our Kickstarter, when we did a Kickstarter for our whiskey fund here, and so like the Advent calendar was actually one of the rewards, and so the first year we had I think about 80 of them that were pre-sold, so we were actually only selling 120 of them, so it was a piece of cake to get rid of all of them. This year it was 415, and like none of them were pre-sold, so it was a lot more work to actually like get them out the door, but people love them.
Was that your first Kickstarter? Because I'm in one of the Kickstarters, and I can't remember what else I'm supposed to get. Okay, I think I was in second. Was this the first one?
Dolph, were you in the whiskey one, or were you in the mash tun?
I'll look it up.
All right. I probably owe you a bunch of stuff.
Oh my God.
Give it
I
a call.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
We have a gift card with your name on it.
I can't remember. I really can. I'll look online. I think it was 2 years ago. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we really had like a better sense.
I'm
this
happy
year,
with what I've gotten so far.
We really had like a better sense this year of like, knowing how long before we needed to have our finishing casks, what products we might want to make for it. And then like also there were a few that were super popular that we just brought back. And so those ones were easy.
Tabasco.
Okay.
But yeah, those ones we just brought back again.
Do it. Big bottle.
Hey,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt here. First, I just want to say, Jenna and James, you guys are fantastic. And I would echo what Dolph just said about your creativity. And if I ever, like when I was trying to roast a marshmallow over the little candle that you sent with that one was just hysterical. And I really love how open you are to exploration, but how careful you are also with your craft. Like to be able to get this many notes off a rum finished, 3-year-old single malt. And I'm not like, okay, I'm totally in the nut husk barnyard. This malt has barely had any. It tastes like ready to enjoy, because it is single malt. So I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I'm here, but I gotta run. It's terrible for me. I know you guys are going to continue maybe or whatnot, but I just want to thank both James, Jenna, and Don't for hosting, but just thank you for all the hard work you guys do.
Absolutely, John.
Thank you, John, for
Good to see
coming
you.
on, buddy.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you, man.
Sorry. Take care.
The Whiskey Neighbor, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks.
Oh, but you asked me earlier
One
which one
last
I like.
question
I'm just
for
going to
you
put
two,
my
though.
opinion in.
Please.
Because I'm a bit more of a rye person right now in this moment, I really like the way that spice comes into that conversation of that sweetness fruitcake. It just nails it. So thank you.
Ah, yeah. Dolph, we still
Good
got
job.
you.
Oh, I got you too, but I want to know if it's, well, it was easier. Is it just as, is it more fun because it's easier, or is it kind of same level of fun because you're kind of playing and you look at the flavors and what you've created this year? It looks like you had fun with it, but I don't want to. Maybe it was too hard and you were stressed out and you're cursing it the whole time.
I think it's more fun because there are ideas that have been in the works for a while, and there's a couple products that didn't quite make the advent calendar cut last year, and so we threw the recipes back in the pile, and we had another 12 months to work on them, and they came out this year, and so it's very gratifying to that note. And the Jenna mentioned earlier the upside down pineapple cake. That was one that didn't make the cut last year.
Yeah, we tried like 3 or 4 iterations last year, and it just never was working. And this year we nailed it. So I'm glad we threw it out last year and then kept it this year. My answer to that question would be, it depends what time of year you ask us that question.
Okay.
The week before,
if it's October, you're stressed out. Is that it?
Like the week before it comes out, we're all pulling our hair out. 6 months before, 8 months before, like we're already working on the next one, like right now.
We're buying barrels right now.
So basically, like the first 6 months are super fun. We get to buy a bunch of finishing casks. We come up with our theme for the next year. We like imagine all of the different flavors we want to make. Like that stuff's super fun. It's the crunch time that gets a little bit stressful, but like, you know, when we see everyone enjoy it and we watch your videos and stuff, like that's when it all pays off. And then we're like, all right, we'll do it again next year.
Okay, and I'm looking forward to it already. That's good. And it's creative, you have fun, and that's great. You're stressed out at the end, but you know what? When it makes people happy and they think of you and they're happy over Christmas, I think that's great.
You know, our philosophy with whiskey is like, we make good whiskey first, but we also try not to take ourselves too seriously while we do it. And so like the liqueurs are kind of an expression of that like we'll make you an eggnog whiskey, or we'll make you a pineapple whiskey, but we're also going to include some like banger whiskeys in there too. So I think we do a good job of like skirting that line between like pretentious and not. Like I think it's like a good like middle ground between it, and like we'll never put a whiskey out that we're not proud of and that we don't feel is like a good representation of the stuff that we do here. But yeah, we will put out some pretty zany whiskeys for sure. That's
it. That's what we want. We want fun. We want creative. And you know what? I asked James this when I was at the distillery, and I'm going to ask you now because I've never. What's that?
I think about this constantly. I know what you're about to say.
Okay. Well, hopefully we're on the same. Have you identified a distillery style where I could pick out your distillery blind within 12 of them? Is there something that you think that you could pick out, not just because you have it, but what elements? Because I think I'm at that point now that I can pick you out blind. And last year or the year before, the summer before, a year and a half when I talked to James, I couldn't. I thought I was getting there, but I couldn't. But after a whiskey advent calendar like this, and I asked John this same question and try to figure it out. And he wasn't there yet, but I want to know if you do, Jen.
You know, I think your comment, I think I watched, it might have been like 5, 6, and 7, day 5, 6, and 7 or something like that. I watched one of your videos. It might have been on John's channel instead, but one of you remarked that it was that I think you said something like it's that signature Sons of Vancouver whiskey flavor, and that's really made me happy because like I think one thing that should be a constant is that you should be able to pick out people's whiskey as like their signature. Like no matter what Ardbeg you're trying, you know it's Ardbeg, or no matter what Westland you're trying, you know it's Westland. And I think that's really what makes a distillery shine. And I feel like with our mash bill, with the equipment that we have, and with our yeast profile specifically, that we've sort of found that for ourselves, and that now we can sort of like find different expressions that go along with that profile. That's what I hope anyway. It's sometimes really difficult as the distiller to make that distinction because you're so close to it. It's hard to remove yourself from it. The best time that I find that that's true, or that I'm able to pick that out, is when I'm at whiskey tastings with other people's whiskeys. We went to one this year where it was like 9 different whiskeys and ours was in the mix. And it was a really good like temperature check for me of like, okay, how does this measure up to all of these competing whiskeys? And also, can I pick out my own and, you know, pick out that note that I smell every day?
Did you?
I don't know if I identified it as ours, but I definitely felt like that was one of the times where I felt like, all right, we're doing something good here. We're doing something right. Because I remember like tasting them all and being like, oh yeah, ours is pretty good. Yeah.
Now I told John that I get lavender, just a hit of lavender with the rye, not with a single malt. So this is my first with the single malt, but going to the ryes that we've had, and all of them, because you're going 100% or 98% ryes with the whiskeys. And with those, I get just the smallest bit of lavender at the end. It gets perfumey at the end for me, and I think it's lavender because I kind of equate it to certain perfumes. And you know, I think it's lavender.
We have a bottle of Templeton rye floating around here, which is 100% rye as well, and it's one of my favorite American ryes because it's so floral on the nose. You could just sit there for an hour and just only smell it, and it's very nice to hear that. So thank you.
Dolph, do you have your 100% rye dram, or did you drink it all already?
I drank that. That was I did the 100% with on Tuesday. So 100% went with the Tropical Breeze. I did them side by side.
Nice.
So, and yeah, it was good because rye is my thing. I know I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, but rye is my favorite whiskey expression.
I mean, you're Canadian.
And trying to get people on with me, it's just, especially with my club, because they're snobs, some of them. It's like, it's not Scotch. I'm not.
I sense a Canadian Rye Society coming very soon.
I've had a few people. I've had a few people that like. I've had a few people that we've changed their minds about rye. That they were like staunch Scotch people, and then they tried our rye and they were like, "Oh, I get it now. I see where you're coming from." Or the same thing with bourbon too. That they were like big bourbon people, and that they, you know, we started to go down the rye rabbit hole, and they started to understand it a little bit better. I think sometimes Canada's like a little bit guilty of having ryes that don't really taste a lot like rye, and so the
stereotypical hot white pepper kind of burn to the rye.
And not fully showing the like spectrum of flavor that you can get from rye. And like James is talking about Templeton, that one has a big red cherry note to it. Like you get Jolly Rancher, like a almost a medicinal cough drop cherry note. Right. Ours is big like banana, orange, clove spiciness. And then you can go in like the green grass route, or you can go in the like big burn black pepper route. Like,
yeah, there's also like rye has like sometimes you get like the graphite ryes where it's almost like a mineral note, like you're I don't know, sucking on a rock or something.
I get that with the heavy dill ones, where I get a lot of dill. I get that at the same time. So, and you know what? Sometimes you like that. Sometimes you're looking for the dill, but sometimes you're not. And it depends on my mood, really. It's my mood, and I'll drink anything all the time, really. But my favorite is the floral, and the same thing with my scotches. I like the floral element coming out, but smoked and floral, one of my favorite things. So
I remember
mixed
that.
up.
Yeah.
Well, we got that with marshmallows over a campfire. We had a smoke with the floral kind of together, and a bit of sweetness in there too. So, but my wife's waving at me. She's telling me we're over time. So you know what? I'll talk to you. We'll talk in a second. But I'm just gonna say bye to everyone out there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Any last comments there?
Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, this has been really fun.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has done such a thorough job of covering the Advent calendar. So, like, thanks so much.
Well, we're happy to do it. We love it. And yeah, I'm gonna visit again too. So I'm gonna take up more of your time if you like. Let's get it. And stay out front. It's beautiful. All right. So, Slancha, cheers to all of you out there. Go buy it next year. Or if you have a friend out there that hasn't finished all of them, they have some empty spots in their Advent calendar, poke them and pull them and start them around, because it's the fun thing to do. All right, Slancha, cheers. Have a fantastic night. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much.